guys, my name is Hayley from History Undressed, and I'm so excited to welcome our special guest today. I've been teasing her a little bit on our channel, but today we have Marianne, also
Hi.
known as Hey Marianne, on
Hello.
Instagram. I'm sure you guys already all follow her because she's just such a superstar and
Oh, thank
everything.
you.
So I'm
I'm
gonna
so
have you
excited to be
introduce
here.
yourself.
Thank you for
Oh my
having
goodness.
me.
I'm so honored. Like you're just too cool for words, and I admire your hustle and just like everything. I just love to see people really pursuing their passion, and I think that's absolutely amazing. So I guess my main question is like, how did all of this start for you? How did you start kind of creating content in this space, and also how did your love for old Hollywood kind of start?
Sure. So I first started creating content during the pandemic back in 2020. Like most people, I was stuck at home. I had nothing to do. I downloaded TikTok. I became addicted very quickly, as most people do. And I was like, I want to be part of this conversation. It seems really cool. It's sort of like you can have your own talk show from your bedroom. You don't have to go anywhere or do anything. And so I just started, talking to the phone and uh, I think some of my earliest content was about Star Wars and The Sound of Music because those were two things I loved.
Mhm.
And I didn't really have a goal other than to get on camera and just start talking to people and see, meet other people that like the same stuff.
Mhm.
And so that was really how I got started with it. And then obviously that spilled over into Instagram after I built a following on TikTok. And the way I got into classic movies was really as a child. I remember my mom was always watching Turner Classic Movies or renting VHS tapes from the blockbuster of classic movies. And when I'd stay home sick, I'd watch those movies like The Sound of Music, The King and I, all of that type of stuff. And I just fell in love. I loved it, and I still do.
I feel like I love the COVID pipeline of like a lot of creators. I feel like most
Yeah.
people have that same story, so I love that. That's when I started taking it seriously as well. I've had my page
Mhm.
around for a while, but I mean, we all had the time. And I
Yeah.
love that we have the same thing in common. So it for what my rotation when I was growing up, Sound of Music, King and I, My Fair Lady. So
Yes.
it sounds like our parents really liked the musical aspect of everything. So that's too funny. If you had to pick, would it Sound of Music? Okay, so you said you started with Star Wars and Sound of Music.
Hmm.
If you had to pick which one.
The Sound of Music is my favorite movie of all time.
Hmm.
It's my absolute favorite. So that would be hands down my favorite movie. But yeah, I started with Star Wars also, and kind of for a while became an exclusively Star Wars page, and was just doing like a lot of Star Wars comedy and skits and things, and that was really how I built my platform originally. And then I did another random Sound of Music trivia video after not doing one for a while, and it exploded. It went super viral, and uh, I remember I had made a mutuals only video, and I was like, wow, it seems like people really like the Sound of Music. And someone had commented, a larger account, and they said it wasn't necessarily just the Sound of Music, it was the style of video. And it was like a light bulb went off, and I was like, oh, I could do this with other movies too. So I started doing like deep dives and trivia videos and things like that about other classic movies and some contemporary ones as well, and like classic music, TV shows, kind of whatever,
Yeah.
whatever I think of at the moment.
I love that must be so validating because TikTok is such the reason why I've had trouble with TikTok is it's really kind of like exposing yourself really. The good thing about TikTok is that it's all strangers. So it's like, you're like your best friends are your strangers, which I love.
Mhm.
But I really applaud you for that. Like it's like just kind of really just putting yourself out there and just kind of like but it got you where you are. So I think that's amazing. And I
Yeah,
do
and I
love your content. It's very engaging and
oh,
you're
thank
just really
you.
good at what you do.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that it can be scary to put yourself out there sometimes, especially if sometimes people are afraid of videos like flopping or, getting only a few hundred views. But if you imagine standing in a room of 200 people and saying that you'd have like an audience. People would love it. So I'm always of the belief that videos don't flop because imagine that many real life people. Like
Right,
that would be a
exactly.
huge audience.
I
So,
think, yeah, like social media has kind of skewed our reality a little bit, so it's always like nice to talk about that. So the difference between both of us is like your main platform kind of pretty much is TikTok, or you grew from TikTok.
mhm.
Mine was always Instagram, and I never really got on TikTok that much. So there, we do know that there's a different like audience kind of when it comes to there's just I don't know that's I'm gonna say that there's a different audience. Like there's more like sometimes it's easier to be like accepted on TikTok. It's easier to just kind of be fully yourself. So I think that's why it was harder for me to like because I was faceless I think for about like 6 years, which
Oh,
is a very
wow.
long time to be faceless. Yeah. So when it was like a whole big decision when I was like, should I show my face? And then there was my face and then there was a whole nother phase to be like should I show my personality, and
Mm,
I think it was mainly like at the end of last year when I kind of was able to like get over that hump and be like, you know what, like, because a lot of people like they really thought I was older because you know my deep dives are on these classic films. So it was just this, it was a whole process. But I'm really happy with the way that I'm doing things now, and you know you're able to like form that real sense of community and form those friendships and everything.
hmm.
So yeah, amazing. I
Yeah, for
guess I do want
sure.
to ask you, of course, about your experience with Turner Classic Film Festival, because I mean, oh my gosh! And I know my friend goes every single year. He's been going every single year for like a decade. So the first time you went, what was your like immediate like? What did you immediately take in?
Yeah, highlight of my life. Like,
Mhm.
I think
I'm
my life
sure.
peaked there. Yeah, I had never been to California. I'd never been to Hollywood. I'd never even been to the West Coast. And so my first time in Hollywood being to walk on a red carpet at the Chinese theater, like every single day, I was like, oh my gosh, am I dreaming? Like this is incredible, all because of videos I was making while sitting on my bed. Like, it just made no sense. And yeah, it was so exciting. It was the best time of my life, like walking on the red carpet, knowing that like Steven Spielberg is there and is walking after you. Like, oh my gosh, blew my mind. It was incredibly cool to be a part of that and to see like so much history, like all the handprints outside the Chinese theater and just Hollywood in general and all the museums there. I went to, everything, everything I could possibly see and do. I was like a kid in a candy shop. I was so excited. And Turner Classic Movies was wonderful. They're so kind and they do such high quality events. And you can tell they really are dedicated to it. And the fan experience for the people that attend these events and such as bringing in influencers to show people about it and the speakers they bring in, it was an incredible event.
Isn't it such a good feeling to be in a room amongst people like just like you? And
Yeah.
especially since we're both, you know, we're both in our 30s, so it's like a little bit like more a little bit harder for us to really find our group of people that are in the same age group as us and are just as obsessed as we are.
Hmm. Hmm.
You live in New York, so I'm sure there was probably more opportunity along the years, the past years, to be able to find that community. For me, I'm in Texas, so it definitely took a while for me to be able to find, you know, my people, and it's only been in the past year. But so I always felt somewhat isolated in my niche interest of things, and never I would never say I was insecure about it. I just felt very just like, you know, when you're always begging your friends, please, I swear to God, this movie is so good or this theater is so much fun. And it's always like very dismissive, like, you know, we're good.
Hmm.
Like, Haley, we do not want to see a silent film with you today. So
Yeah,
like, yeah.
I would highly recommend events like TCM's events for either content creators or people that just enjoy those movies,
Mhm.
because it really is a neat community and you get to meet other people who create similar content. And those Turner Classic Movies events were the first times I was ever like recognized on the street and people were
Mhm.
approaching me because they'd watched my videos. And that was such a cool experience because it really put a face to like some of these people who would leave comments or
Mhm.
people, just it really shows you how much of a reach your videos have when people are coming up to you that you don't know that know you.
You get imposter syndrome when that happens to you? Because it definitely, I do.
Yeah, I get so excited. I get so excited. I'm so flattered and it means so much to me. Like, I'm
Yeah.
so grateful. I never thought I would be in a position like that. And I'm just so grateful for it. And I always take the time to like talk to people. And I'm like, that's so cool. Thank you for coming up and saying hi.
Yeah.
It means a lot.
That's happened to me several times here. And like, I forget, like, for a second, I'm like, huh, like because I like because you know it's so easy to forget when I because I post for myself because I do my deep dives for myself. I enjoy it, you know, so I forget that people are actually watching, like, and so yeah, it is really neat to like you said, put a face to, the follower's name or something like that.
Hmm.
So I'm so happy that of the growth that you've had. That's amazing. And
Thank
again,
you.
you're such a superstar. So,
Thank
guys,
you.
today we are talking about the Umbrellas of Cherbourg, and I'm so excited that this was your first time watching it, right?
Yes, I had
Yeah.
never seen it before, so I did not know what to expect. And
Hmm.
I didn't realize the whole movie was singing. That was a
I know
really
I gave
cool
you no
concept.
context either. I was just like, here's the movie.
Yeah, yeah, that was really cool. I wondered if it was sort of like an experimental format because I know in the 60s there was a lot of experimental art. So
Yeah.
I wondered almost if that was like part of the experiment of doing it all singing, but not necessarily opera, but not necessarily musical. It was just singing, you know?
I'm curious too. I feel like I need to dive a little deeper, but also I'm not like I've watched a lot of French films, but I feel like not enough to where I'm super well versed in, the art of it all. If you were to pick, like, if like whatever, however many you've seen, like, do you lean more towards French cinema or Italian cinema?
Um, I'm not sure actually. I think I can appreciate a lot of different art forms, a
Mhm.
lot of different types of films, a lot of different genres. I definitely think I'm open to pretty much anything.
Mhm.
I love
Yeah.
to try new stuff and watch new things. What about you?
Something I do need to make an effort to watch more Italian cinema. For me, it's a lot slower and harder. Like when you start a film, it's a little bit harder to like fully immerse yourself into it. And sometimes when it's new, it's hard to like stick it out.
Mhm.
French cinema, as much as I love it, like something like The Umbrellas of Cherbourg is such a beautiful film, but sometimes it does portray when it comes to like toxic relationships or something like that, like Brigitte Bardot movies. Sometimes it's a little bit too. I mean, it means that it's a very great art form, but sometimes it's a little bit too realistic for like an American watcher per se. If especially when they're covering topics like TV and things like that, it's realistic to the fact where it's like I have like this is a lot for me. But just like I don't know, but again, so Rebecca is my favorite film of all time, and then we have Umbrellas of Cherbourg is my second. So it is just such a gorgeous film. So what
Oh my
stuck out
gosh.
to you the most when you were at least when you did realize that it was a fully sing? You're like, wait, are you like, is this like a Hamilton thing? Are they gonna start talking soon?
Yeah, I know. I wasn't sure.
Yeah. How long did
Yes.
it take you to realize that?
I asked ChatGPT.
Oh yeah.
I treat ChatGPT like it's my personal assistant. So I'm like, tell me. And it gave me the rundown, and I was like, okay, got it. And really, what stuck out to me most about the movie, once I got past the singing, was the aesthetics. The
Hmm.
wallpaper, oh my gosh. I felt like the wallpaper was like its own character of this movie. And the way they would frame shots, like to contrast with the wallpaper, it was gorgeous. Like the movie was so aesthetically beautiful.
It's a stunning film. Usually I pay attention a lot to the costumes, but you can't help but, really like the wallpaper itself. But the wallpaper goes hand in hand with the costumes because,
Hmm.
especially with Catherine Deneuve, when she's like, by like when there's a wallpaper backdrop by her, everything that she wears is always, matching or like
Hmm.
coordinates really well with it. And I love how there's so many like close-up shots of like faces,
Hmm.
especially like her and her mother and things like that. I think it just really adds this sort of like drama a little bit to the film. And of course, they're all beautiful people. So I mean,
Oh
like,
my gosh.
yeah,
I know. I
yeah,
know. Gorgeous. Oh my gosh, the
absolutely
movie.
stunning.
Yeah, the aesthetics. It just between the people, the wallpaper, the costumes, it's so
Hmm.
beautiful to look at. I almost didn't even need to read the subtitles. I was like, just the
I
singer.
like the thing that so I've seen it, I would probably say maybe like 5 times, and of course last night I was lucky enough to see it on the big screen. So I
So
don't know,
cool.
me and my friend, we're both like obsessed with this film, and we were a little bit way too excited. Like I was having heart palpitations, that was all. I was like all right.
Aw.
It's like that's when you're passionate about something, and I love moments like that. It's just like if what has been your best classic film movie going experience that you can remember?
Probably my favorite of all time was seeing Bye Bye Birdie in the Chinese theater at the Turner Classic Movie Film Festival because Anne Margaret was there and did a little interview beforehand. And just seeing it like in such a historic theater, it was so, so cool.
No, I'm definitely the same way. Historic theaters have spoiled me because ever since I started really seeing films only there, whenever someone does like drag me to a Cinemark, it just doesn't feel right. And like, I
Yeah.
can recline my seat. I can this, because like I'd rather be uncomfortable like in a red chair at the historic theater. Like it really adds some kind of like mystical like magic. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know when you're watching the
Mm-hmm.
film. I would say my favorite experience is probably like it sounds unlike me, but Top I saw Top Hat at a historical theater, and it's a registered landmark here. It's like maybe an hour outside of Dallas, but there was something. It was the town that it's in. It's called Grapevine, and it's very Gilmore Girls. Like
Hmm.
kind of, it stands still in time, and they don't really like inviting outsiders in. Like they kind of everyone knows everybody, and there's something about seeing that film there and the community that I felt, like the laughs, like everyone always knows what's coming next, so you can hear
Yeah.
everyone prepare for that one scene. And it's the audience really does make the experience just as much as the theater does, so
Mm-hmm.
I loved
Mm-hmm.
that. I don't know, let's see what else. So have you watched movies like with Catherine Deneuve and Nino as well before?
I haven't. This was my first introduction to them.
Okay,
And
that's exciting.
yeah, it was so good. So
Mhm.
good. Very impressed.
I my other ones that I've watched were Belle de Jour and then that crazy donkey skin movie. I don't know how to pronounce it in English, but it's like Donkey Skin. It's a 1970. It's absolutely ridiculous and borderline offensive, but it's
Yeah.
it's another beautiful film. Catherine was 20 in this movie, so this was one of her first really like big films, and I feel like it was pretty much her breakout role.
Mm.
And I mean, how could it not be? She was stunning and just everything. What were like the little things that you feel like you caught when it comes? Because this movie is filled with so much cinematography. And did you happen to catch any like little things that they happen to kind of sprinkle in there?
Well, I feel like the movie itself had me a bit at the edge of my seat because I
Yeah.
feel like the story was so unexpected with where it was going. And yeah, and the cinematography just added to it, like, the wide shot with the gas station with the snow and everything at the end. So I definitely feel like the cinematography added to a lot of like the twists and turns while you're trying to like absorb some of it and what's happening.
Right, and also understand how because you have to read those subtitles
Yes.
as well. There's a lot going on. It's like the whole like thing. First of
Uh-huh.
all, wellness check. How are you after watching it?
Yeah, oh my gosh, that was a lot. That was a lot.
It was a lot.
Oh my goodness, I know. I did not see the ending coming at all. At all.
It hurts. It's actually painful.
Uh-huh. But
um,
also, I don't blame her. Like, I don't blame her. She wanted the security. She wanted, the safety net, the financial resources, and he was, I don't blame her. But it was a sad choice.
I'm trying to. This is my first time analyzing it out loud too, so I'm on the
Mm,
same ride with you. The same ride with you. If I were to think about it, yes. So it makes sense to me 100% that she did get married. That makes sense, especially being pregnant at such a young age. If I were to analyze the ending, I think that it was actually very emotionally mature for the both of them to handle that interaction that like they
mhm.
did, but oh my god, did it hurt so bad.
Are we saying spoilers? Can I say
I
spoilers?
think we're saying spoilers. We're
Okay,
consider
spoiler
yeah,
warning.
we'll just talk about it. Yeah.
Okay, so it did bother me that he didn't want to meet his child.
That was the
Like,
worst.
I understand why he didn't because the kid wouldn't know who he was and he probably didn't want it to be confusing and the emotions. But I couldn't know that my child was like 10 feet away from me and be like, I'm good.
That literally like the first time I saw the movie, that like stabbed me in my heart. I was bawling my eyes out, and
Hmm.
I'm surprised I didn't cry yesterday. I was prepared. Like I even me and my friend we started making a like this is us before watching the Umbrellas, but then I didn't cry. I was like I really wanted to. I felt like I needed a release, but okay. Um,
Yeah.
I think there was some crazy stuff going on in our theater. Some woman like screamed for like 10 seconds, like in the middle of the movie, and we were all just like, and nowadays I don't know. It's just like, are we safe? Like, is everything okay? So I think,
Uh,
but yeah, the ending it hurts very bad. And again,
mhm.
like I've talked about this, it is La La Land is like people like to call it all sorts of things. Is it a love letter? Is it a ripoff? Is it a copy? Like, is it this or that? Like, what are your opinions on this? So the director says of La La Land, he says he's watched Umbrellas of Cherbourg 200 times. He says that he loves it and he adores it, and then he says that he does say in his own words that this is a form of a remake, and that he's paying homage. Like, what are your thoughts? Because of course, people have a lot of opinions on this, and because people are very protective of the classics just as much as we both are. So, what are your thoughts on like that whole issue?
So, okay. My honest thoughts are I avoided La La Land, and to this day I have not seen it because
Oh
to
my
me
God,
it looked
stop!
like such a ripoff of
Mm,
the actual classics that I enjoy and love.
yeah,
So I felt like, who are you to come in and rip off all of these classics? No thanks. And then so I didn't see it when it came out, and now that it's so many years removed, it just like fell off my radar, even though I've heard, nothing but good things. But that was my knee jerk when it was in theaters. So I was like, if I want to see a classic, I'll just watch a real one. Thank you.
honestly, I really respect you for that. I think that's pretty badass.
Thank you.
Because I mean, not many people can say that they haven't seen La La Land, and
I know.
it's the patriarchy. I love it.
I know. I just felt like I feel
Yeah.
like Hollywood right now is just lacking in creativity a little bit. And I feel like a
Hmm.
lot of what we're seeing are sequels, franchises, reboots, remakes. And
Hmm.
I avoid
Not
the
to mention the
yeah,
biopics.
like I avoid the live action Disney remakes because I don't want to give them more money. Like give us new stories. I don't want to see, a live action version of a popular animated movie. I'll watch the animated movie if I want to see that story. So yeah, I tend to avoid things that feel like remakes. I
I
just,
feel like it's been a hard like 2 years for us classic
mhm,
cinephile lovers. Like I don't like even just thinking about the costumes of it all, like them being reincarnated on the red carpet, and it's really offensive.
oh
Like
my gosh.
when
Don't even get me started on Kim Kardashian wearing Marilyn's dress. Like,
now that and then there's that is a whole topic itself, but then she's also
mhm,
pulling from Lady Diana's like archive, and I'm just like the only time I would ever be okay with all of this stuff happening is someone who we all know is really, really dedicated to the classics and knows what they're talking about. And if they have it, I don't want it on their body. Like
mhm,
that would always offend me. But if they do have it on their body, I need them to make it all about the reason why they're wearing it and the preservation
mhm.
and the history and the
Yeah,
education of it all.
yeah,
But yeah, it's been hard for all of us who are fighting for everything to stay. I don't know. Education is a whole thing, and history is its whole thing in general.
yeah. I agree. And I feel like a lot of what Kim's done with that stuff has been so disrespectful.
It's so disrespectful.
Yeah, I feel like there's a difference between paying homage and just ripping things off disrespectfully.
No, 100%. Is there any example of like? Is there any example of anything that you can think of that you do feel like truly did pay homage?
I would have to think about that one. What about you? Do you think that there's a good
For
example?
me, there's a movie called Down with Love. I think it was in the early 2000s. Have you seen it?
Okay.
And
No.
it paid homage to the Doris Day, sex comedies of the 60s. And I was lucky enough to interview the costume designer of Down with Love, Daniel Orlandi.
It's very cool.
And the pipeline of that is that he was Bob Mackey's protege, and then Bob Mackey was a sketch artist for Edith Head. So I think he did, of course, he cared really much and he cared about this project, and he did a really good job of kind of just he would pull from like almost like the exact like looks of Doris Day, but maybe like he would make the tailoring of it more modern, which
Hmm.
I found like so it's very like small nuances, but it was very like really cool. And now that film
Yeah.
is like a cult film.
Something I think that paid homage to like that classic era. Have you ever seen the musical Across the Universe?
Yes, I have. Yeah, the
Yeah,
Beatles.
about the Beatles. I
Yeah.
think they did a fantastic job paying
Hmm.
homage to the Beatles and that 60s counterculture time
Mhm.
period. I think they really did a good job, and they created something new because they created like a new story and they put their own spin on some of the Beatles songs, so it wasn't like an exact ripoff. So I think they did a really good job of paying homage without being lazy
Yeah,
or
no, that's a
disrespectful.
really good example of it. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
like
I loved Across the Universe. I feel like that's one of the few modern musicals I really liked.
no, completely agree. It's hard. I just every single but why do I feel like Variety or someone there's always like every morning I wake up there's a new headline being like this person's gonna be playing this in this biopic or whatever and I'm just like,
Mhm.
oh my Lord, when is this gonna stop?
I know, I
At
know.
this point, I feel like nothing can be more offensive than the Netflix Marilyn movie. I think I'm
I
desensitized after that. Did you have
I
the
wouldn't watch it. I would not watch it.
good?
Blonde, is that the movie you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't watch it. I thought it seemed incredibly disrespectful from everything, every interview that they did, talking
Yeah.
about Marilyn's ghost was on set. It just seemed like a complete
Yeah.
lack of any sort of empathy towards her as a human. And then, of course, all the liberties I heard that they took with the story that didn't even happen. So, no, I didn't watch that. I didn't
Yeah.
want to support it.
I'm so glad that you haven't. I don't know why I did. I think I just watched like it was like an opening day thing and I was just like, oh, you know.
Mhm.
But yeah, after that I told everyone I know, like just save yourself, please, for the love of God. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's another example. It's like we're still rehashing Marilyn's story, but now we're taking such
Hmm.
disrespectful liberties with it. Like, give us some new stories, give us some creativity. I feel like there's just such a lack lately.
Yeah. I think, people because now how like trends come back and everything, especially in the age of social media and things like that. I feel like it's been a really cool thing to dive back into like the old Hollywood, like as they other people might call it, like vintage, uh, era, and pull that as inspiration for red carpet looks or like things like that. So unfortunately, it's been kind of like a cool thing to do. So I guess what we can do as creators is just provide that little extra, deep dive. Again, Google is free, but just in case you don't want to Google, like we're here to just kind of just make
Yeah.
sure you know what's going on. So I really applaud that you do that as well, because there are a lot of pages that can like that are do let the aesthetic for it as well, and I love those pages just as much. But again, I
Hmm.
really like taking the extra step to be like educational.
Hmm.
So I'm like going all over the place because
Oh, you're
this is
okay.
our first time meeting, and I have so many questions for Marianne.
You're okay.
Yeah. Like I see like so again, there's so many standout scenes in the Umbrellas of Cherbourg. Again, the cinematography was fantastical. What are some standout scenes that you can point out to me like that you feel like kind of stayed with you after watching it?
Hmm. Um, I think definitely the ending scene for sure. I was like, my jaw was like open. I was so shocked. I think that for sure. And she rolls up and she looks stunning,
Mhm.
stunning, like in her bougie era when she
Yeah.
rolls up. And I think just that juxtaposed with the life he ended up having with like owning a gas station,
Hmm.
and the visuals, the contrast between the way she's
Yeah.
dressed and his business and his life, and how her life is totally different now, and also his child has this, bougier life now also. So yeah, I definitely think the ending scene, I was just like
Yeah.
shocked. I couldn't look away.
I think what I do, and like I said earlier, what I do applaud French cinema for being able to portray like realism like
Hmm.
so much because a lot of like old Hollywood films we see like we can't really relate to them, but it's so relatable and it's like but it's that's why it hurts, like it's
Hmm.
because they had to take the extra step, right, to bring in his wife and the kid to come
Hmm.
and like be like let's celebrate Christmas. Like they just had to take that extra step to make it hurt just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of people might have a similar story, like you have a love that you think is going to be forever, especially when you're younger, and then maybe you just become more rational, right, and then you're it doesn't mean like I don't know, like I'm
Hmm.
sure a lot of people that like maybe they haven't gotten over, they have a love that they will never get over.
Yeah, well, that's what's so interesting to me also is I feel like in movies things usually work out in a very like fantastical,
Hmm.
romanticized way. Like even The Sound of Music, we were talking about that. Like on paper, it made the most sense for him to marry the Baroness. They're like from the same social status, all their friends and everything. That made the most sense. But of course, the grand romantic gesture was to go with Maria, and I feel like that's very classic Hollywood. You know, the big romantic ending where the people who love each other end up together. So I just thought it was so unusual that it went with the practical route, which was, you know, she was pregnant, she didn't know when or if he was coming back, if he still had a lot of interest in her, and there was this wealthy man that could provide for her and was willing to provide for the baby, and that was practical, and that's what she did. And you just don't see that. You don't see that. You always see, you know, the very romantic ending and not the practical ending.
Right. No, 100% agree. So, how were you? What did like when you were watching it and you see Catherine Deneuve pull up to the gas station at the very ending scene? Like, what were you thinking? Were you like in your mind? Like, what were you thinking? Like,
Yeah,
what?
well, first I was like, oh my gosh, she had a girl. Because remember, the mom was guessing, or they were guessing earlier, maybe it was a boy or something, somehow
Mhm.
she was carrying. So I was like, oh my gosh, it's a girl. And I was like, okay, well, then I know it's not going to be Francois. But alas, his children have the same names.
Yeah.
Um, which on one hand was sort of funny, but then on the other hand, it's because she was, you know, still thinking about him, and that was the name he had liked. So
Yeah.
yeah, I was just noticing, you know, the kid and, you know, how she looked and how, you know, she looked so ritzy.
Mhm. Yeah. When he like very vaguely was like, no, I don't want to meet her. Like, did it take you like, were you shocked about it? Or were you just like, what were your
I was
feelings towards
shocked in the aspect of that wouldn't have been my choice,
her?
but
Hmm.
I think it does make sense as far as his choice because he doesn't seem like an overly sentimental person.
Hmm.
Because he was basically with a prostitute the same day he gets engaged to someone else
That was
because his aunt dies. And I was like, I don't think there's a lot of emotion behind this man. So I was like, you know what? He wouldn't want to meet his
Hey,
kid,
that
would
man
he?
was still grieving, okay?
I feel like he was a very in the moment kind of guy.
Oh my gosh, that's so. I'm gonna go since again this was my first. Like I've seen it, I've seen it on the big screen. I'll tell you some things I noticed this time around that I've never noticed, and see if you notice them
Yeah.
as well. So, this is something I never noticed. So, of course, she gets pregnant, but they actually do insinuate them like making love. So, what happens is like I don't know if they were at his apartment or her. I think they were at his apartment, and then they just like kiss, and then it goes silent and it pans to like 3 to 4 scenes of just the town, and it's just pan pan pan, and then it immediately goes on to like the next scene. Never noticed that before. I don't know if
Yeah.
you caught that, but yeah,
No.
it was very cool. It was very subtle, but I thought that was really interesting. And then I didn't notice this, but my friend who was with me did. Apparently, like there's some like tearing of the wallpaper at Nino's apartment, and it's not as pristine. Like especially as she said, like throughout the movie, it gets more and more torn. I didn't need not notice that, but
Yeah.
that's something I'm definitely gonna look out for. I guess it like the wallpaper itself tells stories.
Hmm.
The colors from at his apartment and the colors at like Catherine Deneuve's apartment are very
Hmm.
bright and cheery and
Yeah.
colorful. And his like when you always throw orange in there, I think it was like orange and green or something like that.
The green really jumped out
Yeah,
to me. It's just the colors in this movie were so gorgeous.
they were amazing. Such a beautiful like Technicolor, like just magic. Like oh my
Hmm.
gosh, like stunning.
Technicolor has such a beautiful look to it.
Hmm.
It pains me that we can't do Technicolor anymore.
Oh my gosh, I know. Things like what like this was one of my favorite like standout Technicolors. I can think of Leave It to Heaven, which did win an award for like a Technicolor film, I guess. What other like Technicolor films stand out to you as just like one of the like most?
Probably The Wizard of Oz would
Yes,
be
The Wizard of
number
Oz.
one for me. I think that stands out so much, and the way they implemented it by going from black and white to color,
Hmm.
so unique, so
Yeah,
unique,
so unique.
just gorgeous.
What are your thoughts on the muted tone of Wicked?
So I have not seen Wicked yet because I'm just getting over having COVID and the flu. So I've been sick the entire time it's been in theaters. I'm
Yeah.
hoping to go after Christmas, but I have seen the Broadway show, And from all the stuff I've seen from Wicked, I think it's disappointing to see such muted colors. But it's not surprising because that's been the trend of the last maybe like 4 years. Everything's been
Yeah,
so
I've
like
definitely noticed. Yeah.
muted and drab looking.
Hmm.
And so I mean that is disappointing because I feel like the stage show was very, very colorful. So it was noticeable from
Yeah.
everything I've seen in the trailers and previews that it looks very muted.
Especially when the Wizard of Oz is known for its colors. Like the storyline basically is color. The
Hmm.
whole thing is like the ruby slippers and
Hmm.
Glinda's famous pink dress. But I feel like I'm not going to make any more statements until I've actually seen it in
Oh, you
theaters.
haven't seen it yet
It's,
either?
no, not yet. Just because, here's the thing. Like, everyone online is really hyping this movie up.
Hmm.
Anyone who's seen it, and sometimes that could be, I can go either way.
Yeah.
Like, everyone was hyping up Barbie. I watched Barbie, and I was like, this is the worst movie I've ever seen.
So I have such mixed feelings on Barbie. I have such
Okay.
mixed feelings. So on one hand, when I heard they were making a Barbie movie, I so badly wanted it to be in the lore, like
Mhm.
just Barbie in her world. Because I feel like the trend of the last like 15 years has been anything feminine is bad. And every feminine based movie is about some sort of self actualization away from being feminine, away from that stuff. It's always more of a lean towards like being a little more masculine, as if that's, and I don't necessarily think it's good or bad. I think that people are different, but we haven't gotten a variety of that. It's always been very like away from the feminine. So I was really hoping for just like straight up lore. Barbie, her sisters, Ken, she lives in the dream house. Like, let's give us in Barbie world. So I was a little disappointed when I realized it was another, she wants to be real and she doesn't want to have this fake pink world. So I was a little disappointed by that, but I loved Ryan Gosling. I thought he
No,
carried.
he did so great. He was perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought he carried. So I was a little disappointed when I realized what the movie was about, but I felt like he was so funny. He
Hmm.
carried the movie, and I was so thrilled with every scene he was in. I loved it, as
Yeah,
far as
no,
that
he
goes.
was fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess that's another good example of a proper homage.
Hmm.
Um, with the diamonds as our diamonds are
Yeah,
girls,
the Diamonds Are
diamonds
Girl's
are
best
girls'
friend at the
best friend.
award show.
I liked that because it was almost done in a comedic way, and
Hmm.
it that's a scene that everyone knows, like
Hmm.
so it can't, it's at this point it can't really be stolen at this point. It's just kind of,
Hmm.
it was more, it wasn't a parody, but it just felt like a really good,
Hmm.
I,
And the
I
fact
wouldn't,
that it was gender bent added to it.
yeah, gender bent. I like that. Yeah. Honestly, I don't even really, I feel weird calling it an homage because Ryan Reynolds is being ridiculous in that scene. But it was just, I feel like that did its due diligence, and I really
Hmm.
like that. And it got the conversation talking again around that. So I thought that was
Hmm.
great.
Yeah, I
Um,
thought he was definitely the best part of the
yeah.
movie.
No. Oh, yeah, he was 100%. I
Yeah.
guess when it comes to like closing statements, I do want to know if you caught any, like, if there's any quotes that caught your eye in the Umbrellas of Cherbourg. There's a lot going on, and it is not in our native language, so it's more
Yeah.
difficult. I caught some funny lines I never noticed before, but I want to know if you did.
One of the lines, and I'm paraphrasing again because I'm trying to remember the subtitle, but one of the lines that did stick out to me was how she said, of course, she was beautiful because she was pregnant.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
how, like, basically saying all pregnant women are beautiful. I was like, that's sweet. I like that.
Yeah, that was really sweet. I love her relationship with her mother. It's very realistic, like it was like that's something too. Again, it's French films can be so realistic. Like they didn't try to make the mother like extremely overbearing. She was just overbearing enough to be for it to be like a real relationship. And
Hmm.
her mother really did care so much about her. And even when she was talking to the suitor, she was always looking out for her daughter's best interest.
Yeah, and I feel like that's actually very progressive. Maybe
Hmm.
because it was a French film, because I feel like if that were the plot or even a real life instance in that time period in the United States, that was the baby scoop era where women who were single and pregnant were, giving their babies up for adoption and going to like the single mother homes to like hide away from neighbors so people wouldn't know. And so I feel like that's very progressive that the mother was like, "Oh, we'll raise it. We'll take care of it. It's fine." And maybe it's a reflection of the French culture. But I just thought for that time period that seemed very progressive.
Yeah, completely agree. And again, something I had never really noticed that much or talked about. And I guess some of my favorite lines, one of like it was funny at times. Like there was a time because in that exact same scene, um, Catherine Deneuve said something to her mother. She was like, "We don't have any friends," because like her mom was saying like, what are all of our friends gonna think?" She's like, "We don't have friends," and I love how it wasn't like I have no friends. It was like no, like I have friends.
Relatable though, relatable. I get it.
Yeah, same, totally same. And then there is one where she states, like, why is what is it? Why is distance so heavy to bear? I think I'm like off like a word or two, but it was something like that.
Hmm.
All very like if you, it's like almost it is poetry. Like that movie really is very poetic in all of
Hmm.
everything that they say, which I love. And then my standout scene, I think I asked you earlier. Yeah, my standout scene is the train scene because he's just like fading, she's fading away in the distance. And it's so, the score by Michael Legrand in this film is just unbelievable. And it just, you don't get sick of because like they're not singing, they're not necessarily like singing along to the same kind of tune the entire time. So that's what I
Hmm.
loved about it the best. Amazing. Well, I'm so glad that I got you to watch this film. I always try to get everyone to watch this film. I have like like 3 to 4 films that they're like my go-tos when I'm like, you have to watch this.
Okay, so out of curiosity, what would be like your top three or, just top few favorite films of classic movies?
hmm Um, Rebecca, this film, and Leave Her to Heaven.
Okay.
I guess I like what those are all kind of like women empowering a little bit.
Hmm.
What did you say? Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess so. So I guess I
Mhm.
like those kind of films. What about you? Your top three?
Definitely The Sound of Music.
Hmm
Um, I also, have you ever seen the movie Somewhere in Time with Jane Seymour and Christopher Reeve?
No, I haven't.
Oh my gosh, it's one of my top favorites. It is
Uh,
so good. It's about time travel, and Christopher Reeve tries to go back in time because he falls in love with a portrait of Jane Seymour, and she was like this Victorian era actress.
mm,
And he tries to figure out if time travel's possible. Can he do it? How would he do it? And he is so good.
uh,
And you just really like fall in love with his character.
mhm.
And of course, Jane Seymour is just stunning.
Uh,
They're the two most beautiful people. And yeah, the movie is so good. I would highly recommend
that
that.
sounds so good. It also sounds like the plot line of a classic film. Like there's a lot of
Hmm.
films that like are like that.
Yeah,
That's
I think it came out in like 79 or 80.
mhm.
But yeah, it has like, obviously the time period she's in,
Yeah.
very opulent and gorgeous.
I'm
And
definitely gonna
yeah,
look into that. Yeah,
it's
that's
so romantic and beautiful.
I have fun rapid fires for us to go
Yeah,
through, and it'll definitely help us get to know each other a little
yeah,
bit
let's do it.
too. Amazing. So, I'm just gonna toss these out there, and then we're gonna have to answer, and we'll probably like have a hard time answering because it's always hard to answer these kind of questions. But okay, favorite old Hollywood actress or and actor?
So, actress, I might say maybe Elizabeth Taylor.
Okay.
I love Elizabeth Taylor so much. I've been so fortunate to work with her estate so much the last few years making content on TikTok.
Mhm.
So Elizabeth Taylor is definitely one of my all-time favorites.
She's famous. So, favorite movie of hers?
I mean, is it cliche to say Cleopatra because she just slays 4 hours of incredible outfits and costumes and makeup and everything. I
Perfect.
love Cleopatra, but I also love Little Women, and I feel like Elizabeth Taylor's Little Women is no one's favorite. Like, and I don't mean like they dislike it. I just mean like people usually focus more on like the modern renditions of it. But she is so funny. I feel
Oh,
like
she's so
she's
funny. But whenever
yeah.
I hear things like that, I feel like maybe they just haven't discovered it yet, or because it
Exactly,
hasn't been
exactly. I
well
feel like people talk about the more recent Little Women
right.
renditions, and a lot of people
Yeah.
haven't seen hers. But yeah, she's so funny in it. She's so great.
No, she has so much lore that like I can't even like talk about her much longer because like we will just go like
Yes,
all day into
we do a
this.
whole other podcast
I know,
on Elizabeth
I
Taylor.
know on her lore. Oh my gosh. So and then actor.
Actor, that one is hard. Maybe I'll say Christopher Plummer because we were talking Sound of Music. He's
Mhm.
also in Somewhere in Time with Jane Seymour and Christopher
Oh, he
Reeve as
is.
well.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. He's so handsome. Oh my gosh.
yeah.
And if you watch interviews of him, he's again, he's very poetic. The way that he speaks, and if you read quotes of his, like he's just so deep and so thoughtful and everything. So
Hmm.
yeah, really adore him. Okay,
Hmm.
for me, again, it's always hard. Jean Tierney is my favorite actress for now. I mean, today she is.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I feel like it's so swayed by what did you watch more recently?
Right. I
Because I
know.
just watched Sound of Music and it's top of mind. I'm like, yeah, why not?
Mhm.
Christopher Plummer.
Yeah. No, I agree. Again, it changes every day. Same with just anything of my favorites in the classics.
Hmm.
So Jean Tierney, I think she deserved the Oscar against Mildred Pierce. I'm so sorry. I mean, Joan wasn't even there. I love Joan,
Yeah.
but I mean, just if I were to be able to, if we were to be able to see Jean accept her Oscar, like that would have been amazing. Just
Hmm.
especially because she had such a short kind of like career,
Hmm.
and therefore because of that, she's kind of been pushed to the back where not enough people have really discovered her fully yet. So I will always fight for my girl. Favorite actor is impossible. I can never decide.
It's so
Montgomery
hard.
Clift, Montgomery Clift, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We'll say him for today.
Okay.
Okay. And then we've talked about this, but if you were to pick one, I guess you said The Sound of Music is your all-time favorite movie.
Yeah, I think so. I
Yeah.
think so. To me, it's just the perfect film. I wouldn't change
Yeah.
a thing about it. And I feel like with so many other things, I'm always like, well, maybe I would do this.
Mhm. Yeah. No, that's a movie that I was raised on. That's pretty
Hmm.
much what created who is sitting here today.
Yeah,
This
yeah, same.
monster, yeah, as you may.
Same. Yeah, I would always, my thing was whenever I would see like a gazebo or something, like at
Hmm.
the parks or whatever, I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is my chance. I'm lethal. I have to jump the benches.
Oh my gosh, that's one of my main goals is to go and do the Sound of Music tour in Canada.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's like I need
Same here.
a list of things to do before I die. That's one of
Yes, same here.
yeah, Rebecca I already said is my
Hmm.
favorite. I don't know. It's just it's so eerie, but in the perfect way. And I love me a good like femme fatale kind of film. Okay, and then I think you already said it, but is that your pick for favorite 21st century movie?
Um, for the 21st century musical
Yeah,
with
I
Across
guess
the
it's the
Universe,
70s. I'm so bad with numbers. Is it 70s? Is it 21st century?
I think that'd be the 20th century.
Embarrassing. Okay.
You're fine. Yeah, I love Across the Universe for a
Yeah.
21st century musical, but also another one I thought was really good was Hairspray with
Oh
Zac
yeah.
Efron and Nikki Blonsky, Queen
Yeah.
Latifah. I think that it's better than the original Hairspray. I
Who has
love
yeah.
it.
Love that. Um, my favorite 21st century movie. I really like the Phantom of Opera with Emmy, and I can't even remember her last name.
Yeah.
But that is such a good movie. I think it's done really well, and I love. I don't know. I'm a big musical girl. Like
Hmm.
I love that movie. So okay, I'll pick that for now.
It's
Um,
it's so funny to me with Phantom of the Opera to remember that Michael Crawford originated the role on Broadway because I grew up watching Hello Dolly. I loved Hello Dolly. I still do. And he is the opposite of what you'd expect to be as the Phantom in Hello Dolly. He's just so goofy and his voice was like, goofy. So just hearing him sing opera, I'm just like, he glowed up. Love that for him.
I love actors and actresses that are able to like shapeshift like that. I find it
Hmm.
so cool. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, okay, so we're gonna do some this or that. So comedy or drama?
Ah, that's hard.
That's impossible.
Maybe drama? Maybe?
I think I would have to say drama, but there are so many other reasons why I would pick comedy. But if we're
Hmm.
talking about like classic films, I think I would prefer to watch a drama. I like a good
Yeah.
plot
Yeah,
line.
I think so. I
Yeah.
think so, as far as classics are
Yeah.
concerned.
Westerns or what did I put here? War. Oh yeah, westerns or war films.
Probably. Oh gosh, that's so hard. Maybe war?
Okay.
Maybe?
Yeah.
What
No, I
about
think
you?
there's a lot of good. Yeah, okay, so this is something about me. I don't know if I've said it publicly. I cannot stand Westerns. I don't know if it's because I can't stand Westerns or because I haven't given it a big enough chance. Because I know so many people, whenever I say this, so many people will say like, oh, I grew up watching John Wayne because of my dad or
Hmm.
because of my mom or whatever. I can't get into it. So I love
See,
that.
my thing, I feel like I am not huge into Western movies either, but I
Mhm.
love Little House on the Prairie.
Okay, yeah.
I love the TV show with Michael Landon, so I'm like, is that Western? Maybe? Prairie genre?
I would say so. I would say
Yeah.
that's pretty Western.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like that's the furthest extent of my interest in Westerns would be Little House on the Prairie.
I always feel like a fraud though, because I feel like we should be watching more Westerns and we should be more well-rounded, but here we are, just yeah. So I think
We
maybe
like what we like.
I know we do like what we like. That's what I love about the old Hollywood community is that,
Hmm.
everyone you meet has like a whole different thing that they because we're chronically online and all we do is deep dives. So for example, like my friend that lives here, Ryan, and he shows a lot of films like in the area, like classics on the big screen, and he basically is like that's his business, but he is basically forcing everyone against their will to watch what he wants to watch on the big screen. So, and I love it. He's introduced me to just so many great films, but like literally, like we all literally have our like niche favorites, and we want the same thing for everyone. We want everyone to see what
Hmm.
we love. So I love that like the old Hollywood community really expands our horizons, and that's
Hmm.
like one of the most I I don't know. I think we're just such a beautiful community,
Yeah.
and yeah, I love that we're niche. I think we're just that makes us just super cool. So
Yeah, and what's interesting too is how the classic Hollywood genre is expanding because
Mhm.
now movies that were made in like the 80s and 90s are considered classics, which is weird to me because I was alive in the
No,
90s.
I
And
know.
because just recently I was doing a series on TikTok where I was doing a watch through of 80s classics because
Oh
I
yeah,
felt
I
like
saw
when
that.
I was a little kid, they were just, movies my parents watched when they were on TV and they were still kind of contemporary. They weren't really considered old classics. And so I had a bit of a blind spot because when I was watching classics as a kid, it was like these movies from, the 60s or whatever. So I was
Mhm.
just like, it's so interesting to me the way more modern movies are now classics. And like
Mhm.
at the TCM Film Fest, their opening night film was Pulp Fiction.
I
And
saw that. Yes.
yeah, yeah, and just a lot of these movies that weren't really considered old when we were kids are now classics. So that's interesting to me too, is how the genre itself will continue to expand.
Mhm.
And movies now, like for instance, maybe Barbie in 30 years would be considered a
Oh my
classic.
God. The moment I see Barbie like, at my historic theater, I swear I'm gonna lose my mind. But
Right?
it is happening. I think it's both one showing our age, but also I think it is with the times. And I think at first when it first started happening, because it is pretty recent, I was kind of like grumpy about it because I was like,
Hmm.
no, I want you guys to keep on showing my favorite 40s and 50s films. But
Hmm.
I think it is good because it does bring people in and everything.
Hmm.
And I do really like that.
Yeah,
But
I definitely think.
also I
Yeah.
think it's helping our historic theaters because for years, many, many years, like all historic theaters all across the nation were really, really struggling to keep their doors open. I can't even
Hmm.
tell you how many shut down in my area during COVID. So I know a lot of it was marketing tactics as well, but it's really turned into more of a beautiful thing. And I've been meeting a lot more different kinds of people at the movie theaters, which I think is amazing.
Hmm.
Jumping back in,
Yeah.
we're okay. So musical or epic? I know your answer.
Musical.
Same here. Yeah, I love me a good musical.
Yeah.
Let me think. What's my favorite musical? Okay, so my answer, if you asked me before I saw it on the big screen, it was always My Fair Lady. But what the hell? Like, that's actually really not like Henry Higgins is insufferable. He's a terrible
Yeah.
character.
Well, it's so funny because I always loved My Fair Lady as a kid, but now I
Mhm.
know the Julie Andrews lore.
Yeah, I
I don't
know.
know.
Like, oh my gosh. Yeah, like I will forever be grateful to My Fair Lady always. Um, because it played such a huge role in who I am today, but oh my God, like so I think The King and I would be one of my favorites.
Hmm.
The costumes play a big part in that.
Hmm.
So Screwball or Femme Fatale film?
Probably Screwball.
Okay. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
another thing that I have a hard time getting into. I'm not against them, but I have a hard time like really falling in love with them.
Hmm.
I love me a good femme fatale.
I think my favorite Screwball comedy is Bringing Up Baby with Katharine
Yeah,
Hepburn and Cary
that's a good
Grant.
movie.
I
Hmm.
just rewatched it the other day, and she is so good. Katharine Hepburn, she's so good. Just the energy and the pace that she talks, like, so good.
No, she's so good. She would kill on TikTok with her storyline.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh, she would.
Like she just the perfect pace, the perfect energy. Yeah,
Hmm.
love it. I can't believe I said that out loud. Um, let's see. Okay. Oh yeah, my favorite femme fatale. If you haven't seen it, it's called The Strange Woman with Heidi Lamar. Um, really, just a really good storyline. So I think we've decided collectively, but I did put remakes, yes or no.
I feel like if they're going to remake something, they have to do it way better.
Yeah.
They have to do it way better. Either the cast has to be better, they have to be adding something, and that's why I like the 2004 Hairspray or 2008, I don't know, something like that with the Hairspray. Because I think that the cast was better and the way they remixed like some of the songs, the way they redid things, I think it was just better. And but I think it's very hard to pull off. I think it's a very difficult thing to do. And in most cases, I don't like remakes and reboots
Same.
because I feel like the Disney ones, I feel like the stuff that they add is not necessary. Like the songs that they add aren't as catchy. And it's like, what? This is a cash grab.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like that's most people's opinions.
Hmm.
Um, and also it really, I think it really depends on like the director and whoever's brainchild it is, if they are able to recognize that, I should be doing justice to the original. Um, just like what I did like about, again, I really didn't like the Barbie movie, but what I did like is that director really, she did really refer back to her and she acknowledged, the classic. So I did appreciate that. Just like La La Land really never like they acknowledge Umbrellas of Cherbourg, but they didn't acknowledge like scenes like Virgo and things like that. Like they really just pulled like scenes from old Hollywood all over the place and declared it as a new phenomenon. So
Hmm.
so we have Adrian or Edith Head. I had to include a costume in there.
Probably Edith Head.
Okay, yeah.
What
I
about you?
always have a hard time picking between the two of them because they're just so different.
Hmm.
Like you hardly see Adrian did Wizard of Oz, but other than that, you really don't see much of his stuff in Technicolor.
Hmm.
But for the sake of it, I think yes, it would always have to be Edith Head. Yeah. Were you able
Yeah.
to make it to the exhibition in Oklahoma?
No.
I think most people didn't.
Aw.
It was so random that it
You
was.
went, right?
I did. Yeah, I was
Yeah, how
able
was
to
it?
go opening weekend. It was good. I personally think that it didn't if it wasn't in Oklahoma, it would have been it needed to be Edith Head was something that needed to be done justice, and I think it should have gone to somewhere more metropolitan, and to where they have the funds and where they have the education to where it could really
Mm,
be showcased the way that it deserves.
yeah.
But that didn't. With that being said, I'm not gonna. That doesn't take away from what was in there. The things that were there were phenomenal, and you do see things like this, like in pop up in random places in Middle America, and and it's still just as cool because of what's in there. So I'm not gonna take that away from anything.
Yeah.
Um, so I do want to know, what's your old Hollywood hot take?
Ooh. Let me think. Old Hollywood hot take. What's yours while I'm thinking?
I
What would
know
be
I have to
yours?
think of mine too.
Okay.
I have so many. Everyone's gonna hate me for this. Okay, so I just saw It's a Wonderful Life on the big screen. I've seen it before. I don't like that movie. I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. Like
I yeah.
I think it grew up to be this phenomenon that people copied because of 5 minutes of the film. I'm
Hmm.
not saying that I'm sure at the time it was probably this whole big thing because you've never seen it. Wow, what a phenomenon. This is so crazy. This is something I've never thought about. Um, I like that that people are able to really take that with them and it makes them think. But I'm sorry, if you were to look at the whole film itself,
Yeah.
I literally almost fell asleep. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I have two. I thought of two.
Okay.
Okay, so one, I feel like the Philadelphia story is so much better than High Society. And High Society is just Grace Kelly doing a Katharine Hepburn impression. And I
Mm.
mean, I like the music. I think the music is good in High Society, but the role was so clearly written for Katharine Hepburn, and I just feel
Yeah,
like Grace Kelly feels very. I
I
don't
think
feel
I
like it's
agree.
authentic to her
No,
as
I,
an
I think
actor.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one.
Mhm.
And then the other one, I guess. Okay, so this is an 80s movie. Do you like Indiana Jones movies?
I haven't really gotten into them, but please do
Okay, so
tell.
I love Indiana Jones, and
Mhm.
my favorite is Temple of Doom, and it is widely considered the worst Indiana Jones movie. And my hot take is that's because of misogyny, because Kate Capshaw is so unapologetically feminine, not adventurous, and very much fish out of water. So for the whole like adventure movie, she's very like resistant. And by the end of the movie, I think that she shows a lot of growth, but a lot of people complain, oh, she screams too much, she cries too much, she's dead weight. And it's like, that's who she is. She's feminine, and that's okay. And the reason you don't like it is because you have a problem with the fact that she's feminine and she's not as rough and tumble as Indiana Jones.
Mhm.
So that's my hot take about that.
I love that. Like, and I feel like that really that translates to a lot of films similar to that. Like, I've never seen it, but I've read a lot about it. Jurassic World. I forgot the name of the actress, but she literally wears heels. She wears
Hmm.
these beautiful white pumps throughout this entire like running through the jungle scene, and she's wearing
Hmm.
a white like suit. And it was like all over the headlines, like crazy. Like, how can she be wearing pumps? But that's
Hmm.
kind of the whole allure of it, you know. It's like makes
Hmm.
it very yeah. So love that. I love these hot takes of yours. I guess my last, like my closing statement that I really want to say, and it's a little deep, but I don't care.
Yeah.
Um, so again, like I feel like creators have just started. I mean, obviously, the past 4 years since TikTok happened, people have been able to really make a living off of these. But when it comes to like respect and everything in the creator space, like, because I would say definitely things like TikTok and social media directly contrast old Hollywood lovers. Like it's literally an oxymoron. But of course, people are like they follow the pages because they love them. You know, they love the
Hmm.
classics. So when it comes to like what you do and like I don't want to use the word legacy because it sounds crazy, but like what do you want your main like what do you want to be known for? What are you most passionate about? Like what is your like if you were to have a mission statement or things like that? Like you love when like it's so meaningful when people come up to you like I
Hmm.
guess like what is that you want like people like really take away from
Yeah.
your work.
Yeah, so to touch on what you were saying about the way people see social media compared to classic Hollywood and things like that, I would say that we're the natural evolution of the entertainment industry. Because when you go back, like over 100 years, it was, theater was acting. And if you're doing, silent films, you were considered a clown and whatever. It wasn't taken seriously. Theater was serious acting. And then movies became more popular, and then it was the talkies, and they were seen as vulgar and not real acting, and then it go on so far and so forth down the line. And I think that the internet is the natural evolution of the entertainment industry, and I think a lot of us are going to be seen as some of the trailblazers in this industry, since we're some of the first creators on TikTok and Instagram, some of the first people to get followings on these platforms for these things. And that's why I think that we're seeing creators at film festivals and exhibits and things like that, because when you look at the numbers, the same amount of people are watching our content as watching entire seasons of TV shows, way more than people who are watching cable or might be streaming a movie. So when you look at it, and in 50 years you might have the same amount of people that know who you are as know a TV show that aired on ABC,
Mhm.
because our audience is the same. And so I think that as time goes on, there will only be more respect for creators, because the people that are watching us now who are kids, that's what they're going to know. They're not going to know sitting down and watching the new TV show on Fox on Thursday nights the way people might have done, in the 90s with Friends or whatever channel it was on. They're going to know, oh, yeah, I used to follow, us on social media, or I used to watch this person's live stream or subscribe to their YouTube channel. So
Mhm.
I think the legacy is going to be that we were seen as some of the first people in these mediums that are going to continue to develop, and there'll be even more after us. But
Mhm.
I think that as time goes on, there will only be more respect for the medium as a whole. And then, like I said, I think there will be a lot of respect for creators, because the kids that grow up are going to look back at us with nostalgia as, people that shaped their
Oh,
opinions.
not nostalgia.
Well, someday when, kids are
Yeah.
adults, they're going to look back at us as, people that shaped their childhoods and shaped
Yeah.
their opinions and things. So, yeah, I think there will only be more respect as it goes on.
Yeah. No,
And
I think that's beautifully put. I love that.
yeah, and I'm happy with that legacy. I think that that is an amazing legacy to be at the forefront of a new medium of entertainment. That's
Hmm.
incredible. I'd much
100.
rather be there than in an industry that might be sort of dying out, which is some of the mainstream, cable and
Right.
whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that what we're doing is really cool and it'll only get better.
Mhm. Yeah, like I just think like the niche that we've chosen, the medium that we chose to talk about, I think that's what makes it so all the more important because again, I feel like most of us started this because we love it, right? And
Hmm.
I think again for me, I still to this day I post for myself first. I post because I did a deep dive. I post because I love this movie and I want to share it. So I think that's really important and with that with the education behind it and I think like that's what makes it just it's important work, but at the same time, it's like when you do something because you love it, it just makes it all the more amazing. It does make it harder for old Hollywood creators. It does make it harder for us to expand. I've noticed that a little bit because we've kind of put ourselves in this little bubble. But again, when you get out there and you meet people, and I'm going to manifest that we'll be meeting each other soon once I get a plane ticket
Yeah,
and
yeah.
a hotel. I think like that I just totally forgot what I was saying. But yeah, I really, I think that I'm just really proud of what we do, I guess is what I
Yeah, me too. And I think that talking about classic Hollywood also, it's very easy to talk about like pop culture as a whole because
hmm
it's such a good jumping off point. Like I've, expand a little bit and I talk about other pop culture things sometimes. And I feel like it also reminds people that a lot of these things that might be seen as like, oh, 50 years old, it's still relevant because,
Yeah.
it just ties into current times more. And like I said, as classic genre continues to expand,
Yeah.
it's, it becomes a natural tie-in.
100%. One thing that I told someone recently was because I mean, I was talking to a filmmaker and he was making a film talking about like the LGBTQ community and everything. And I was telling him about, what I like my niches. And I was talking to him about pre code because I feel like when most people who aren't familiar, when they think classics, they think about these very, you know, films that again what they only were allowed to kiss for like 2 seconds and very things like that so it was very proper and I was like no there was like a whole thing before then there's this thing called pre-code so again I really like being able to like share my like random snippets of information with people and kind of hopefully get people in more people excited about the classics so I'm going to ask you one more question
Yeah.
and then like so I guess if you were to pick one film, so there's someone in your life that hates the classics. They have no idea why you like it. They never want to watch a movie ever again because they don't like any of this. If you were to pick one movie to try to convert them, what would it be?
Ugh, that's hard because my knee jerk says The Sound of Music, but my rational side is it's 3 hours. So I'm like, oh gosh, that is hard. You know what? Maybe even doing something like The Wizard of Oz because I feel like it's so entrenched in pop culture and it'd be very easy to get a lot of the references
Mhm.
that you might have seen elsewhere. Either that or you know what else is a really good one that I feel like it's overlooked as far as classics is the Gene Wilder Willy Wonka.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah,
because
yeah,
I feel
yeah.
like Gene Wilder is so funny and there's a lot of like more adult humor, like how witty he is and his little one-liners throughout the movie. And that's another movie that's very entrenched in pop culture that I feel like would be very easy to get into. So yeah, maybe one of those two, because
Yeah.
yeah, they're musicals and whatever, but I feel like they might be an easier watch.
I think the one good thing about these remakes, just like we had A
Hmm.
Star is Born again recently,
Yeah.
how many times has that been remade now? Is that people do go back and they watched the very first making of it. So that's a good thing. Just like, I'm sure a lot of people did with Wizard of Oz. We saw on TikTok so many people were doing deep dives on the Wizard of Oz,
Oh,
after.
the misinformation around the Wizard of
There's
Oz drives me
so
crazy
much
though. Do you
misinformation.
follow the Oz vlog, Tori?
Yeah, I do.
She's always got her like denied fan with all the misinformation. I'm like, girl, how are you not exhausted?
Oh my gosh, the whole thing is so funny. Um, I think if I were to pick, I probably have several, but if I were to pick one, it would be my go-to answer is always How to Steal a Million, just because it's very like Bond-like and it's quick. It's not like one of
Hmm.
those that like takes a while to slowly get into because I
That's
know
true.
people get bored very easily.
That's true.
And also it's Audrey, so it's like you can't turn down Audrey. What are you kidding? So
Hmm.
those are my thoughts on that. I guess if is there anything that you just really want people to know about you that before we like head out?
Oh
Where
wow.
can we like what are you doing next? What are your goals for 2025 for yourself, I guess?
Sure. So up
Yeah.
next, I'm planning to do the pop-up event that TCM is holding in New
Mhm.
York City. I'm not sure yet which of the events because I know they're doing several. But yeah, I'm definitely very interested in doing that next. I think that's my immediate plans
Mhm.
for 2025. But yeah, what about you? I know that you're considering the event also, right?
I have tickets to every single like event.
Have you done any TCM events before? Have you gone to
No,
any
I
before?
haven't. So that's why I was so quick to hop on that because like I was just like, yeah, let's do it.
Hmm.
Yeah, so hopefully I'll see you there. Yeah.
I know, I gotta figure out what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, my goals are just to meet more people in the same
Hmm.
space. Like, up until this year, genuinely hadn't met anybody in real life, But again, social media is just such a powerhouse, and finding my community here in Dallas is just, again, that the whole thing sounds like an oxymoron too, but there is a beautiful old Hollywood community in here in Dallas, and I'm very lucky to have it.
I know, that's so cool. I've never been to Texas.
I always have a hard time like recommend like being it's so great. It is though. Like if you know the right places to go there, I mean there's so many historic theaters here. The
Oh yeah.
Texas Theater where I was at yesterday to see Umbrellas, JFK's assassinator was arrested there while sitting there
Wow.
watching a movie. Yeah. So
Wow.
there's history, like real history here.
Is that where
So
you're from? Texas?
Well, thank you
Yes.
so much, Marianne, for coming on today. We are so honored, and I think people are really gonna like enjoy our conversation and getting to know you a little bit more.
Thank you. I'm so honored you asked me, and I love your content. I love following you, and I really hope that we'll get a chance to collab at a future event.
Of course, I think again from all of us here at History and Dress, I think we're all big fans. So it was so much fun today. I know we talked about like the Umbrellas of Cherbourg like 25% of the time, but you know what? I think it was perfect.
Yes, I highly recommend anyone who hasn't seen it yet. It it was great. It was my first time watching. I would recommend.
Good. I'm so glad. Well, everyone, please go follow Marianne over on Instagram if you haven't already. I'm going to put her handle here at the bottom. And we hope you have a wonderful Christmas.
Yeah, Merry
Yeah. Okay.
Christmas.
Bye, guys.
Bye.